everybody, Nicole Mashburn, and we are going to begin the nervous system today. So I'm going to basically introduce the topic to you. It won't be a very long video, but just enough to get you started on your introduction. Hang on. Okay. So when we talk about the nervous system, the first thing we need to know is what's the function? Why do we even have a nervous system? And the reason we have a nervous system is it's basically in order for us to sense our environment, make a decision about that environment, and then respond if we need to. So for example, on this picture, say you're thirsty, you've been outside and you're really hot and you're tired and you're thirsty, and you see a glass of water. Well, your eye is a sensory organ. It can actually is how you see or use vision. And so it's going to send sensory input or sensory information down a neuron, which you learned a little bit about neurons when you talked about the muscles. And that sensory information is going to go to our brain. And your brain is like a big old computer. It's where integration occurs. So your brain recognizes that that is water and it's something that you can drink to help alleviate your thirst, and it sends out a output or a motor output or a response to your muscles to go and pick up that water so that you can drink it. So your nervous system is a way to, again, sense your environment, decide what's going on in your environment, and then to respond to the environment. And also to sense things going on inside your body, like changes in blood pressure or glucose levels in your blood, to decide through your brain what you need to do about it. Do you need to, does your pancreas need to do something? Does your heart rate need to go up? Does your heart rate need to go down? Do you need to breathe faster? What do you need to do? And then to send that response to the appropriate organ so that you can maintain homeostasis. So what I like about the nervous system is it's really fast. And if you've already covered the muscles, you've talked about action potentials, and you know that the nervous system basically works by a little system of electricity. All those signals or action potentials are just basically changes in current or voltage, and basically just electricity going through your body. You have another way to control homeostasis in your body. If you think way back to the very first unit, we did mention the endocrine system. The endocrine system is also a primary way of maintaining homeostasis. Just really slow. You've got to make hormones, and they have to be released into the blood, and then they've got to go to the organ, they've got to cause a response. So the nervous system is a much, much faster way to sense your environment and to respond to that environment. Now, when we talk about the nervous system, we divide it into several different divisions. And by this point in anatomy and physiology, you know we have to categorize and divide everything. We have to have everything in its own little box. So the first division is really kind of an anatomical division. And it's the central nervous system, which you'll see me write as a CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, which is I'll usually use TNS. So your central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord. Okay? Your brain and spinal cord is your central nervous system. It's centrally located. It is the computer. It's where integration and control are taking place. So input comes into the brain and spinal cord, decisions are made, integration is occurring, and then the appropriate response is sent out from the brain and spinal cord. Now your peripheral nervous system are nerves that come off the brain, which we call cranial nerves, and we'll see those later, but they're little nerves that come off the cranium called the cranial nerves, and also spinal nerves. So there are nerves that come off the spinal cord. So these nerves that come off the cranial nerve and are off the spinal nerve, off the cranium or off the spinal cord, are called peripheral. It's called your peripheral nervous system because they're on the periphery. They're not on the central nervous system. They're kind of outside of it. And this peripheral nervous system allows us to communicate between the central nervous system and the rest of the body. So that's your first division. It's kind of an anatomical division. The second division is kind of more of a functional division, and it's basically is information coming in or is information going out. And we divide that into what's called sensory or motor. The other word for sensory is afferent. When information comes in, so this is your in, information in, or efferent, or motor, is out. So for example, that previous example, this is your sensory information. This would be afferent information coming into the brain, and then your motor output would be efferent, or information going away from the brain. So we have information coming in, information going out. Now, when we talk about the information coming in, we have two different types of ways to get information. We're either going to see what's going on around us in the outside environment or what's going on inside of our bodies. Okay? And we divide that into somatic and visceral. Somatic is kind of that stuff that's kind of surrounding us, like touch and pressure and hot and cold, things like that. Visceral are feelings in your organs. Your viscera is your organs, so it's telling you what's going on inside your body, like your stomach's expanded, you're stretched out from a big meal, things like that. So this is information coming from the organs, your viscera, and this is sensory information, kind of lets you know what's going on in your environment. So once you get that information coming in, the sensory information coming in, you've got to send the signal to the brain and spinal cord. Some kind of decision is going to be made, and then it's going to send out the response via the motor division. And the motor division basically means you're going to send out a response to either a muscle or a gland. We call these effectors, whatever is having the effect, whatever is responding. It could be a muscle, it could be a gland, any number of things it can be. Now, we've got to divide it once again. This information going out, this motor or efferent division, is either going to be what we call somatic or autonomic. Somatic is basically voluntary. So if you want to send a signal out to your skeletal muscle, that's what you're in control of, that would be a somatic response. So your somatic nervous system is your voluntary, and you use motor neurons, just like you learned when a neuron synapses with a muscle. And so these are impulses from the CNS to the skeletal muscle. So here comes a motor fiber out to a muscle. So that's your voluntary nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system, you can almost interchange autonomic with automatic. Okay? So it's involuntary. And this is going on in your viscera. This is the changes that your brain tells your organs to make, the automatic changes, your respiration to go up, to breathe faster, your heart to beat faster. Anything that you maybe make more urine, whatever response needs to be occurring, this is your automatic or autonomic nervous system. So these are impulses from the nervous system that's going out to the cardiac muscles, to smooth muscles, glands, anything that needs to respond. A hormone gland, something needs to be producing a hormone, just something that needs to respond other than skeletal muscle. Now, we've got to divide it one more time, okay? So your automatic or autonomic nervous system is then divided into two separate divisions called the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. And this is what you may have heard of as fight or flight. Fight or flight, or rest and digest. So fight or flight, that's kind of your sympathetic. Rest and digest is your parasympathetic. So your sympathetic nervous system is anything that kind of gets you mobilized. It mobilizes systems. It increases heart rate, increases respiration. So if right now a big elephant walked in the room or a tiger walked in the room, I'd probably freak out, my heart rate would go up, and I would want to escape. That's my sympathetic nervous system kind of taking over to get me out of a bad situation. If I'm just sitting here chill, I've had dinner, and I'm just kind of hanging out on the couch, I don't need my muscles working, I just need my food to digest, that's your parasympathetic, kind of your rest and digest. And we're going to talk about that even more in the coming videos. That's just basically what's going on there. So here's a sympathetic fiber going out to the heart, and a parasympathetic fiber going out to the bladder. And most organs have innervation that's both sympathetic and parasympathetic. So for example, increase your heart rate or decrease your heart rate. Increase your respiration rate, decrease your respiration rate. And again, we're going to talk about that in just a second in more detail. Now, I very rarely tell my students to memorize anything, okay, because I really want you to learn things for understanding. But this chart, you need to memorize it. If you can, basically take this chart and refill it in from memory, then you have a really good understanding of what's going on in the nervous system. And here's a little bit more on that sympathetic and parasympathetic. Again, you're going to see it again later on. But this just shows you that each organ usually has innervation by both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And there's a chart in your textbook as well. That's something you're just going to have to go through and look at each organ and see what's going on when it's under parasympathetic or sympathetic control. And we'll talk about it again later. But kind of the key, remember, this is your rest and digest, and this is your fight or flight. And so I usually tell my students the best way to think about this is to just put yourself in the situation of either something scary walking through the door or it's after Thanksgiving, and think about what's going on in your body. And I'll do one more example, and then I'll let you guys do this on your own, and also in some later discussions. Think about you're in school, and they want you to give a public speech. What happens? You're scared, your heart rate goes up, palms start sweating, your mouth goes dry. That's that fight. You'd rather run away, you'd rather fly, get away. You're inhibiting saliva, okay? But after Thanksgiving dinner, you're kind of sitting there eating, and or you're thinking about food, you get more saliva. You got to give that public speech, your heart rate goes up, your cheeks flush, hanging out after Thanksgiving dinner, watching the ball game, kind of chill, your heart rate's going down. Kind of see where I'm going with this? So that's basically what's going on. So these are automatic controls, but one is more of a get you out of the situation, and one's more kind of a chill out situation. And you just have to go through and look at each organ and see what's going on. And you've got a chart like this in your textbook as well. Alright, so again, I just want to reiterate, I put this in here for you so you'll have a blank slide. I want you to take the time and go, let me see if I can do this. Well, this is my CNS, right? Brain and spinal cord, PNS. So this is information back and forth between the two. What am I looking for? Look for the arrows. Got information coming in. Got information going out. This must be sensory. This must be motor. I'm going to let you do the rest of them. Okay? So, this is a good way to just practice and make sure that you understand how the nervous system is divided. It's divided not only anatomically between the central and peripheral nervous systems and the sensory and the motor, but also functionally based on what it does. Alright guys, I will see you on the flip side.